Good morning. Good morning. How you doing?
Doing great, brother. Doing
Yes,
great. It's
sir.
afternoon. It's afternoon now,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but you're so locked in. Don't know what time of the day it is.
Yes,
Focusing on
sir.
helping these families.
Most
Um,
definitely.
but bro, I noticed you had a pretty solid week. What'd you do this past week?
Yes, sir. I believe I helped around six families.
What does
Um,
that equate to in AP?
oof, around seven.
Okay. How long you been actively selling for?
I've been actively selling as a licensed agent for around a month and a half now.
Okay. Nice, man.
Yes,
And
sir.
you have school and other curricular activities going outside of this, which
Most
we've talked
definitely.
about.
I'm a part of a ministry at school. I'm there majority of the year, and then I'm back here for home for the
Yeah,
summertime.
man. And working with you in the Arizona lock-in, one thing that I took away from you is right off the rip is just your genuine care and empathy for the clients you're helping. And that stems through on the phone. And people can feel that. People can feel that genuineness, that empathy, that charisma that you have about yourself. So just give the people some tips as a brand new agent as to how they can better connect with clients, serve them, and write more premium.
Most definitely. I think the most important thing that I've learned is first asking a lot of questions, being coachable. I mean, I'd be lying if I told you that it was easy. I personally struggle with that self-confidence here and there. And I overthink a lot, but I think being able to be surrounded by a good community of guys, and girls around us definitely did help me a lot when it came to asking questions, learning, watching some of the trainings, some of your YouTube trainings that you have posted as well. That definitely did help me a lot. And then when it comes to the client, it's really just being relatable because at the end of the day, these are real people that we're working with. These are real families that we are helping. And I think that it is very important to put them in the best situation possible, not just for my commission, but actually so that, on their worst day, when something does happen, that their family would be able to reach out to me and we get everything set in place, which is what this job is for.
Amen, brother. Amen. Thank you for sharing. Couple other people I want to spotlight that had good weeks. We'll be doing it, switching it up instead of just reading off the leaderboards. I just want to pick on a couple people. Another person, Demarco, are you on here?
Yes, sir. I'm right here.
What up, big dog?
What's up, brother?
So I've I've been watching you and seeing what you're doing, and you're somebody you've been with us for a while, but it's been off and on. You've been working from home, and you go into the Sioux Falls office and talk to us about since you came out to Chicago, plugged in with those guys, and you've been in the office, how impactful that's been for your business.
Yeah, I mean, just putting your head around people who literally just want to see you win, right? But people are already winning. I mean, that's the whole biggest thing there. Most importantly, like you said, I've been in this space for a while, off and on, but really just deciding to put your head down, really just put your head down, use my language, but get the fucking work. That's
Yep.
just what I decided to do. And just not taking a no for an answer, moving on to the next one. But yeah, I would say just getting around Kobe, being around Ed. I mean, Cam just talk. He's just going crazy. Just being around people who are doing it like you and that you want to do it like them and just keep learning.
100%. 100%. What advice would you give to the person that's maybe they're struggling locking in?
Um, Find your non-negotiables. Find like three non-negotiables that you can hold yourself to every day. Like for me, I've been getting up so much more earlier, been working out like crazy, like figuring out things that are just going to help put you in the right mindset first. And after you get in that right mindset, I mean, everything else follows through. You know what I mean? And I do feel like, I mean, you gotta have something that you believe in. I mean, I've always believed in God, but like really putting him first now. Like, right, like when I wake up, not looking at my phone, like just reading, my Bible, really putting myself first, locking in. I just feel like everything has just been flowing ever since.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that I was just having a conversation with somebody this morning about how impactful that morning time is. Because if you wake up and you get right to work,
Hmm.
your whole day can be thrown off that like you're reactive. You're constantly reacting to things. Or it's like you just wake up and you reply to texts or phone calls or whatever it is. Like you're responding to the world versus waking up extra early, spending some time in the Word or stretching, or doing some Wim Hof meditative breathing exercises or whatever the case may be, like that's one thing that I've taken very seriously and I'm very protective of is that first 30, 40 minutes when I wake up and just to clear
Hmm.
my head and make sure my mind's right for the day
Right.
and
And then
then get
I
after
guess
it.
the last thing I just want to throw out there is, I mean, I was always kind of scared to invest in myself and invest in my business, right? Buying leads, people always say it leads, 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 but it's literally I mean, it's the whole formula, right? The more faces you can get in front, more people you can talk to, is the only way you're going to close more deals. So that was another thing too, holding my non-negotiable to making sure I'm spending like 750 bare minimum each week to 1,000, making sure I'm doing that. So
Workflow plus lead flow equals cash flow. Simple
yes,
as that.
sir.
All right, brother. I appreciate you. I
All right,
appreciate
brother.
you. Um, but Luke, you on here?
I think he's on the phone.
He's on the phone. He's closing a deal. Well, I want to give a shout out to Luke, even though he's not on here, because he has been the first one to the office and the last one to leave since we've opened this office, and he's gotten locked in. And he absolutely flipped a switch. Really quick before we get Ryan on here, I want to introduce one last person, Simon. Simon, are you on here? I think he might have an appointment as well.
Yes,
Yep, I'm on
Simon.
here.
Oh, there he is. What's up, brother?
What's going on?
So the last name is not a coincidence. This is actually my brother, by the way. So Simon, how old? Share with everybody how old you are.
Yeah, so I'm 20 years old. Just came from construction, so started
Okay.
doing life insurance like three months ago. So
No sales experience.
no sales experience.
Okay. And it was a little rough at
Mhm.
first.
Yep.
You got your teeth kicked in. What did you do yesterday?
So yesterday I wrote 5K with 2 policies,
5K yesterday. What did you do the week prior?
5,500 for the week.
5,500. And the goal
Mhm.
this week is 10. So
10K.
you wrote the same amount of premium yesterday than you wrote in the entire past week of last week. So what were some things that allowed it to like really click for you and for you to lock in and actually have the confidence to successfully close deals and help families?
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely getting the reps in, having your goals straight. Like for me, I'm trying to do 300 dials a day. So once I started doing that, I was able to get the practice in, running through presentations and just getting the reps down and just closing started becoming easier for me. Started to get the practice in and just kept getting easier from there.
What time do you get to the office in the morning, typically?
I typically 7:45, 8 o'clock,
What time do you leave?
8:30 at night.
8:30
Simon,
every
what's
day?
the most number of dials you've done in a day without using a power dialer?
560.
What's your average day of dials?
Average day, 250 to 300.
How many prezzies?
I try to get 2 to 3 prizes every day.
There we go. Nothing
Mhm.
less. Just outwork yourself out. Outwork yourself out and get obsessed with the inputs. The guys that typically the people that overthink or overanalyze this business, the reason that they overthink is because a lot of times they're not putting in the work and they're not putting in the reps they have. For me, my goal was I always wanted to stay so busy that I didn't have time to doubt myself. Or I didn't have time to get because you've all heard the saying, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And so if you catch yourself having negative thoughts or whatever the case may be, just force yourself to lock in because I don't want any white space on my calendar. And one thing that we did that I gave to Simon and I ordered a bunch of them for the office. It was shout out to Milo. He got us on these were the timers where you tap it and it starts and then you tap it again and it stops. And I'd encourage you guys to they're $8 on Amazon. You can get them delivered tomorrow. And if you struggle focusing, like see how long you can actually lock and only dial the phones. And if you do anything else but dial, you have to stop it. And it's going to be harder than you think. So I would recommend everybody getting that and actually locking in and executing on their inputs because the inputs are the most important. So thanks for sharing, Simon.
Yep.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's introduce our guest. Where's Ryan at?
Right here, brother. What's up, Jonah?
What's up, bro? How we doing?
Good, fantastic. Lovely to be here, brother.
My dog. When are you coming down to Tampa?
Dude, I should come next week.
You should. You should, man. Pull up for our lock-in.
Yeah.
Are you coming for the grand opening?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Sweet, dude.
We'll be there.
All right. Let's just dive right into it. I want to make the most out of our time today. Every time you hop on here, you deliver some heat and talk to us. I think everybody's biggest struggle is maintaining proper structure on the phones
Mhm.
and maintaining control of the sale because they'll we've all heard the analogy, the straight line method, Jordan
Yeah.
Belfort, where like you got to stay right here. And then an agent like he'll try to be here and then the client will give an objection and like, oh, what meds are you on? Oh, I don't want to give you that. And then they'll like kind of like try to steer around it, not get the meds, and then get into something else. And they're over here. And then they're trying to bring it back up here, but they're so far gone at that point. It's just, dude, what are you doing? So, what are some key tips and takeaways you can give to the people on this call just to maintain control the entire time?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So like control is one of those things where it's like how do I describe it? It's like a sleeper objection. And what I mean by that is like it's the thing that's going wrong that you don't notice that's causing everything else to go wrong. So it's like that one little leak up river that's poisoning the entire river, and we're looking at so like you can presentation, right? You can say everything correctly, you can handle objections correctly, you can build the value, the why, the sense of urgency, pre-close, you can do everything. But if you don't have control, you're never going to get the sale, right? And on the other end of the spectrum, if you do everything wrong, but you at least have control, then you could make a sale, right? Whereas if you don't have control, you're never making a sale. So it's super important. So as far as maintaining control, there's a couple of different things that you like I think mentalities or mindsets that you have to take into the call. And first of all, like objections aren't real. They're just not, right? No objection is real. Yesterday, I was at a checkout line at a grocery store and I sneezed, and the cashier offered me something. I said no. I didn't know what I was saying no to. Turns out he was offering me like a squirt of hand sanitizer. No reason for me to say no to it. It would have been like the probably the polite thing to do to be like, yeah, absolutely. But I just said no because I wanted to say no. And that's what people do. And when your clients say I'm not interested, they don't literally mean Jonah, there's no plausible scenario in which I would ever buy life insurance or mortgage protection ever from you. Like they don't mean that. They're just saying they're not interested because they want to get off the call. So what happens is they throw a bone and like a good little boy, we go chase the bone. But that's not the thing, right? So don't pay attention to it. So when they give you the objection, don't even talk about it. Ignore it completely. Yeah, no worries. I'm not interested either. But anyway, how old are you? And just straight into the financial inventory or straight back to like the straight line method, the sales process that you're on wherever you left off. I think that's the first place where people go wrong. Um,
Ryan, question for you on
yeah.
that specific question because we were just talking about this last night with a few of the guys at the office. What exact response do you use when they say they're not interested? I think that's one of the most common objections we get.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I'm not interested either. I still got to go over everything with you now and then question or command. Grab a pen. I'll let you know how it works or whatever.
Boom. So the classic one. Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, definitely. Depending on the situation, if they say it the second time or the third time, it'll sound a little different, but that's typically what I said. So that's like the first thing. The first thing is we're chasing bones that they're throwing to throw us off the path, right? But stay on track. Now the second thing is often we respond to objections the correct way, but we don't take control after we're done responding. So they do give us an objection. We deal with the objection, and you can even ignore the objection, but if you don't regain control of the call, the control goes to the client. Do you mind if we listen to a like 2 minutes of a call recording here real quick?
We'll do it.
So I have a recording of one of my agents that is really helpful. And so you got this agent is the funniest thing. He sent me this call and I listen to several hours of call recordings of my agents a week because it's the highest impactful thing for my agents and for myself in order to be able to help them. But he sent me this call Monday. He was like, I'm getting cooked. He's like, I'm getting cooked. These leads are terrible. He's like, this was the most difficult client I've ever had to work with. I don't think anyone could close him. What could I have done better? And so I listened to it. And what I want you guys to listen to is listen to how the agent will say a line and then just stop talking. No question, no command, and listen for how awkward it is and the objection and the pushback that the client gives him. So this agent was like, "Oh, I don't know what's wrong. What was wrong was he wasn't taking control of the call. He just thought this client was difficult, but the client was difficult because the agent wasn't controlling the call." So let me get to the part that we need to listen to here. All right.
Keep going. Yes, sir. This is Anthony Lombardi. I'm just getting back to you about a policy you were looking into with us that would help with the mortgage if you were to get sick or pass away. I was just reaching out because the file is still open with us.
So notice he says file was still open with us. I paused it real quick, but then no question, no command. He doesn't keep control. It's up to the client to decide where to go.
What company are you with?
So you can feel that awkwardness, that tension. He gets an objection. The objection isn't there because the objection is real. This guy doesn't care who he's with. He literally doesn't care. It doesn't make a difference in the world. The problem was Anthony didn't, I'm not supposed to say his name. I think he said his name a second ago. The agent didn't take control of the call and direct the client where he needed to go. So the client decided where to go, which is always going to be an objection. And the same thing will happen when we deal with an objection and we don't move on or ask a question at the end. And you'll hear he does the same thing here.
So I work with a company called Pinnacle Life Group. I work with all the A-rated carriers out in Virginia.
Just giving him all the control. Yep.
Yeah.
And then you hear the client was like, okay, like, and we're not going to listen to any more of it. But and he does this probably 6 or 7 other times throughout the call. And again, he sent me this call thinking this client was so difficult. I'm like, actually, this was one of the easiest clients because there's multiple times where he should have just hung up on you, right? So after you get done, you must always end with a question or a command. Sometimes you're out of questions to ask, like you're through the intro. Use the financial inventory. One of the things that I'll do is, like, let's say you're giving me a lot of pushback, Jonah. You've given me 3 objections already, and I've kind of gotten back into the intro and stuff. I'll just straight up go into the financial inventory. So the third time you're like, I'm not interested. I'm like, no worries, Jonah. Are you not interested because it's way too expensive or somebody told you that you couldn't qualify? Then whatever response they give.
That's so key. And not only you, because I think some agents they don't know when to ask for the sale either.
Yeah.
For example, there was we just closed a deal down this morning with one of our guys here in the office, and he was he filled out the FI and then I took it over from there. And he was just like, I think what agents if I had to point out a specific section, what agents struggle with the most is that transition process from like showing them numbers to actually jumping into it. And a lot of times you just got to jump right into the application and just start filling it out.
Yeah.
Because they may be like, they're more than likely buyers, but certain people are just never going to agree. And you just simply have to get started and jump into the e-app.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. What happens is when they say they want it, you should not say anything other than grab your ID and start filling out the application, right? Because the more that you say, the more opportunities they have to overthink. You should never say, okay, I'm going to start the application. Starting something requires committing to finishing it. And if they don't want to commit, you're asked by saying we're going to start this, you're asking them to commit to finishing it. And even though they're down, they just don't want to commit to finishing anything, because they just got on a call with you. So you can kind of trigger a really negative response where you're losing control. But as a general rule, Jonah, if I say something in my sales process, like I listen to my own call recordings at least once or twice a month, and I used to do it a couple times a week. But if I say anything that doesn't add value, I cut it out. So for instance, a lot of people, when they get back from getting quotes, they're like, all right, hey, I have the numbers here. And I think you're gonna like these options. Does that add any value? Absolutely not. So don't say it. All right, Jonah, grab a pen. That's it. Right? That's all you say. The least amount of words you can say, the better. And that's the other area. That's the next thing. That was the next point actually that I was going to make on where people go wrong is somebody will ask a question or give us a buying sign and will over explain the answer. So for instance, somebody will give us a buying sign and they'll say, hey, does this pay out immediately if I die? And we'll be like, yeah, and we'll explain a 2-year wait and we'll explain how we work with all the companies. So we do all the shopping around and we found the best policy and blah, 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 blah. And what happens is we say so much, they have so much to think about. As it like just in the simplest terms of it, the more words you say, the more the client has to think about, literally. So when you talk a lot, you give them a lot to think about. So shut up and stop talking. When they say, does this pay out immediately if I die? If the answer is yes, yes. That's it. That's all you say. Do I have to make a decision today? Yes. That's it. That's all you say. That's nothing else. And what happens, like, you kind of validate their objection. So if Jonah goes, do I have to make a decision today? And I have to take 10 minutes to explain to him why he should make a decision today, it doesn't seem like that's the case. But if I'm just like, yeah, I liken it to like the scriptures and God's word, right? Like if somebody's going to tell me something's right or wrong and there's a Bible verse that says, thou shalt not kill. All right, thou shalt not kill. But if you have to show me 27 Bible verses and give me an 82-minute monologue on why I shouldn't do this one specific thing, and you're drawing all these random connections, then I'm like, okay, it's probably not the case, right? And we think the same way. So straight to the point, the fewest amount of, if you can answer it in 3 to 5 words or less, answer it in 3 to 5 words or less.
Ryan, I've used the same line so many times. For you, what percentage of the time do we have to make a decision today? Responding with yes, and that's it. What percent of the time does that work for you?
Almost 100. It's almost 100. If it's not 100, darn close.
Same. Mine was like 85, 90%. So next time the client asks you, do we have to make a decision? Just yes. That's it. I loved it when I was in person and I just
Yeah.
look at him
Yeah.
and then look. Anyway, but okay. So I think there's that balance of less is more, but I think some agents hear that and they confuse that with building the why, because the why is the one piece you really do need to dig deep into.
Yeah.
And people are, whether it's they don't know what to say or they're afraid to get uncomfortable or they're afraid to dig deeper. What are some tactical ways that you're able to really dig deep into bringing out the why, especially if they're giving you pushback?
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Can you throw like just a 1 in the chat if you're working digital leads so I can know if everybody's working digital? We'll talk about that. I think most people are probably working mailers. So just throw like a 1 in the chat if a majority of your lead flow is digital, just to help me out real quick in the way that we answer. Looks like only a couple people. All right, we'll stick with mostly mailers and we'll touch on digital too. But so there's kind of 2 types of why, right? The only difference in a digital lead and a mailer is where you're going to touch on each why. So like on a digital lead, every lead there's an emotional why, which is this is why I would like to have the coverage. And then there's a logical why, which is this is why I need to have the coverage, okay? So the difference in a mailer and a digital lead, in a mailer, you're going to talk about the emotional why right at the beginning, and then the logical why after the financial inventory. In a on any type of a mailer, you're going to do them both at the end. So when they're giving you pushback, the first thing that I would say, Jonah, is there's so many agents that are asking questions about the logical why that they don't know the answer to. And what I mean by that is I wasn't thorough in the financial inventory. So I'm asking Jonah, because this is the right thing to do. What's going to happen to Claudia if you die tomorrow? And Jonah's like, well, we have life insurance and coverage through work and about a year of savings and, a rental property. So she'll be okay. And I'm like, damn, wish I would have known that, right? Because I would have asked a different question. So the first thing is if you constantly get a lot of pushback, it's not the client. It's not the client's fault. It's not about the situation. There's something that you're doing wrong. So first of all, before you move to the logical why, which to put it simply is what does the application of this coverage look like for you in your life? Before you go to the logical why, you need to know the answer to any question that you're going to ask. If I'm going to ask Jonah, what does it look like for Claudia when you die? Or how is that going to impact her financially? Or how would she pay the mortgage? I need to already know the answer. Okay. And that's by doing a good job of filling out the financial inventory. Because what happens is they know we're salespeople, right? As much as we try to go, oh no, I get paid a salary. I don't care. You know, you buy if you want. I don't care. We do care. They know we're a salesperson, right? That's the facts of it. And so they're going to give us bull crap answers anyway. So if you don't already know the question, the answer to the question, they're going to tell you, oh, she'd be fine when she wouldn't be because they don't want to be sold. But when you've already figured out how much life insurance they have, and you already know that they only have 2 months of savings, and you already know that the expenses are 8 grand a month, and she only makes 3 grand a month, there's nothing that they can say. So they're going to, actually give you real answers. And on the other end of that is there's definitely times where we ask the wrong questions because we don't know the answer to the questions we want to ask. So, for instance, maybe you have a lot of life insurance, Jonah. You have a lot, okay, but I haven't asked that yet. And I ask, what's it look like if you die? You're like, she'd be fine. But if I would have done the financial inventory properly, I would know Jonah has a lot of life insurance, but he doesn't have anything to replace his income if he can't work. So I shouldn't ask about death because what happens, Jonah now feels like this guy's an idiot. I have so much life insurance. He doesn't understand my situation. And even though I can still help him with living benefits, he already sees me as somebody who doesn't understand his situation. So he doesn't want to trust me to help. So instead of asking about life insurance, now that I understand the situation, I'll know what questions to ask. And then the answers that I'll get will be a lot better. So a lot of the pushback that we get is solely because we're asking the wrong questions because we don't have all the information, or we're asking the right questions, but the answers that they're giving us are because we haven't properly uncovered everything that we need to uncover to that point. Does that make sense?
That was good. That was a good response. Yes. Okay. Well,
And
let's flip that. Let's say, how do you actually, two things before I get into my second question? What are the specific track words you use to dig deeper into the why?
Yeah. So for me, it's really simple. It's really logical. Most people here are doing mailers. So let's just go just mailers. So on a mailer, it's very transactional, very logical for me. I do the full financial inventory. I'm pretty sure we use the same exact financial inventory. So ask every single question that's on there. Do not skip anything. Ask everything because otherwise you won't have all the pieces you need. A couple things that I do extra that my team does that not everybody does is I go over their monthly expenses every single time. So how much they spend on their mortgage, gas, food, groceries, car insurance, car payments, phone, cable, Wi-Fi. I add up their base living expenses.
Ryan, that's funny. That's funny you say that because we were just having this conversation yesterday about that exact thing as well. Where just to clarify for those that missed it, you go over it 100% of the time.
Yes, 100%.
And I'd recommend I was the same way because before I was doing it, I would get, hey, I need to think about it. I need to check my budget. I need to make sure I can afford it. Need to talk to the wife if this is a good financial decision. Need to talk to my financial advisor. Da, 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 all the I would get those objections way too much. And so once I would just flip that sheet of paper over, like Ryan said, break down every single one of their expenses, and that it helps tremendously. And you're going to get much less pushback. So I would encourage every single person on this call to break down their budget every single time.
Yeah. If my agents don't, if somebody is like, Ryan, I didn't sell this one. And I'm like, hey, well, what was their expenses? And they're like, well, I don't know. I hang up the phone. I'm like, all right, I can't help you. Like fix that problem and then we can talk because it really is that important. But so I go over that and I know what their income is versus their expenses. And then my word tracks are really simple. I use the same exact ones in every single call, depending on the situation. But it sounds something like this. Like let's say, give me a scenario, Jonah, husband and wife, like income and versus expenses. Like, what do you want to touch on?
Yeah, let's say, well, two things. First of all, when it makes sense. Secondly, let's do the first of all when it is a doom and gloom, and then the second situation not doom and gloom. So first
Okay.
of all, say I'm making five, wife's making 2,100, total expenses are $4,000 a month,
Okay, cool.
or say 5,200 actually.
Okay, so assuming we properly did the financial inventory, went over their expenses. Okay, so the expenses are about 4,000, a little over 4,000 a month. Does that sound about right, Jonah and Claudia?
Yeah, give or take. Some months five.
Okay, gotcha. So would you guys say you're definitely depending on both of your incomes then to pay all the expenses and stay comfortable?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And then I added the and stay comfortable line because when I would just say the first part, sometimes they would say no, but and stay comfortable is kind of the all-encompassing, hey, everything else that you guys also pay, because we add up is not the only things they pay, obviously. So he said yes for sure. Okay. Gotcha. And then this is where, okay, Jonah, let's take a look at it. If something happens to Claudia tomorrow, she can't work, you don't have that 2100 coming in. How are you gonna pay the bills?
Uh, be tough. I got a life insurance policy that I took out a while back.
Yeah.
We
So
could we could rely on.
yeah, I'm not saying she's dead, right? You know the number one reason, Jonah, that people lose their homes or go bankrupt?
No, I don't.
Yeah, it's not actually a death or a loss of job. It's actually medical expenses. So the scenario here isn't that she's dead. She's not dead. So you're not getting life insurance, but you can't work either. How are we paying the bills now?
Be tough. Probably if you probably sell one of our cars,
Okay.
reduce the expenses.
Okay. Let's like flip this and let's say Claudia, because we've gone through it, she'll probably say, yeah, I wouldn't be able to do it. But let's flip it and say Claudia said it's tough. Right? Because Jonah could probably get another job, work some more hours, and squeeze it out. Probably be okay. He probably could be. So I'm not going to hammer home on him. Flip it around. Let's say Claudia's giving me some pushback. She's only making 2100. Bills are 4 grand. I'd be like, first of all, I would just say it's tough. And what that does is it prompts her to explain what she means by it would be tough. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get her to say it'd be impossible with that. Excuse me. I've been felt like a sick as a dog the last couple of days. We're making it through. But I'm trying without any friction is bad. So if I can avoid friction, I want to. So as opposed to like beating her head, like you're a lion. There's no way you can do it. I'm not going to try that first. First, I'm going to try a softer tactic. So she said, oh, it'd be tough. So I'll repeat the last couple words as a question. It'd be tough. And, excuse me, and see what she says. I'm struggling over here. Let me go get a glass of water. I'll be right back.
No, you're good, brother.
No, just breathe in
Man,
until you can't anymore and it'll take it away.
thank you for that. I don't know who said that, but that's helpful. I'll write that down. Um, Man, that's a money line. I hope everybody got that. Would would you guys say you're both definitely relying on both your incomes? I put expenses, but because Ryan was talking, but both of your incomes to pay the bills and stay comfortable. And if you add the comfortable part, I've never heard anybody phrase it that way, but I really like that.
All right,
And
we're back.
and you said I like what you said about less is more too. All you said, say that one more time. Just one word.
Are you guys definitely depending on both of your incomes to pay all the bills and stay comfortable? That line?
Yes.
Okay.
That line, and then what do you say next?
So next would be
It would
okay.
it'd be tough. Or do you
Um,
just say tough?
Yeah, so if the next line I'm gonna say is okay, Jonah, what's it gonna or Claudia, what's it gonna, how is it gonna impact you if Jonah can't work? And if she says it'd be tough, she's like, oh, it'd be tough. So it's an answer that's not descriptive. It's clearly not true. It's not just gonna be tough. So I'll repeat the last couple words of what they said as a question to prompt more of a response. So it would be tough. And then they'll expound upon that. Try this, guys. When somebody it's like already 3 o'clock, but when your boy's like, yo, what do you want to order for dinner? And they're like, oh, Chipotle. Just be like, Chipotle? Repeat it back in a question, and he'll be like, yeah, brother, it's healthy, it's fresh, they got great meat, I love Chipotle. And you'll see how this tactic, it really, really works. When anytime anybody suggests anything, oh, you want to go to the gym? And they'll be like, yeah, bro, we're going to get our pump in. So use it. It works really well. So it'd be tough, and then they'll give you a better answer most of the time. But let's say, she says something good, but if she's like, well, I could probably get another job or whatever, or like, yeah, it would just be really tough. Like maybe she doesn't give me much to work with. So if she relies back on the it's tough thing, I'll be like, well, tough for me is when I spill coffee on my pants in the morning. So what does tough look like for you, Claudia? Like, what do you mean by that? And I kind of make light of it. I'm like, tough for me is when I spill coffee on my clothes in the morning. So what would tough mean for you? And that's kind of saying, all right, I know you're not being honest, but it's again, we get another job. I'll be okay. I mean, right now you're making 2100 and you're already full time. You know, Jonah couldn't even afford it just on his income, and he's making 2.5 times what you're making. So realistically here, Claudia, we're talking about tripling your income overnight. Do you feel like you could confidently tell me you could triple your income overnight without a problem? And then a lot of
No.
times I'll be like, yeah, a lot of times I'll be like, because I think if you could do that, you probably already would have. Is that accurate? And I'll like make a joke, like obviously you would have already done that, like you're an idiot, but in a nice way. Um, and then they'll be like, well, no, I definitely couldn't. And I'll be like, okay. So then once I kind of get them to that point, the next line is, okay, so do you guys want to put something in place to make sure if something happens to either one of you, that the home is paid off or at least still affordable? And then usually they say yes, and then I move on to kind of like explaining the products and the benefits and stuff.
Okay. Let's say it's not a doom and gloom situation.
Yep.
Let's say both spouses have been making 10K a month. Either one would be fine. They got a couple life insurance policies. How are you building the value if they don't really need it?
Yeah, don't really need it is relative, right? So when we think, it's funny because this weird thing happens when we see somebody in that situation and we think they're not going to want it because they're already well set up. But let's look at the facts. They're a good decision maker who's a hard worker, makes good decisions, and is financially literate. Is this a good product we're trying to sell them or a bad product? It's a good product. So are they going to be likely to want it? Absolutely. But then we'll take somebody with 3 baby daddies, you know, on disability, relying on like government income, doesn't work, chronic bad decision maker, is in a house that they can't afford, and we'll sit there and be like, oh yeah, she really needs it. She's gonna want it. It's like, dude, there's such a thing as chronic bad decision makers. There's people that it doesn't matter how good of an idea it is or how much it would change their situation. They're poor decision makers. We all have a couple friends. I'm sure none of them are on this call, but we all have a couple friends that are like that. So I put more energy, effort, and attention towards the people who classically don't need it than ones who classically do. Because again, I want to work with people who are good decision makers, not people who are bad decision makers. So I will say that on the front end. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that those people don't need it. People with money, their number one fear is protecting their money. All of my biggest sales, I've had like 5 or 6 that have been over 12K, and a bunch that have been over 8. Every single one of them has come from somebody who makes a lot of money and in a classical sense of the word doesn't need it. But we're in that situation. They're both making good money. So what I'll do in this situation, they already have life insurance. Between the two of them, they've got $500,000 in their 401ks. Do a good job of spending their life insurance and their 401k. I'm assuming your life replace your income if you died. He says yes. Okay, and then the 401ks. I'm assuming you got that money to save it for retirement. Yes. Okay, so if you don't have to touch that money early, you're not gonna. No, right? Because that could come up as an objection. So then what I'm gonna do is I get down there. I'm not gonna paint the picture like the world's ending tomorrow, because otherwise, if I try to, they're not. They see me as somebody who doesn't understand their situation, and they're right. I don't, and it'll turn them off to anything I say, even if I say something that could help them out. So I'm like, all right, Jonah, now looking at the situation, and I'm going to glaze them a little bit, right? Blow some smoke up their bum. You guys are honestly doing really well, both making good money. Looks like we're going to retire, um, with the home completely paid off. So kudos to you guys. Now, looking at the situation, Jonah, it looks like really the only thing that could come between you and, retiring the way you want to looks like some sort of major medical issue, where not only can you not work, but you also have a bunch of extra medical expenses. Is that the case? And they'll be like, well, yeah. I'm like, okay. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like Claudia's going to be homeless tomorrow, Jonah, because she's not going to be. You guys have some assets in place where you guys would be okay. It wouldn't be a good situation, but you'd be okay. She's not going to be homeless, but do you think it would help to have something in place so if you got sick or something happened, it would just pay off the home for you so you don't have to pull from retirement or anything like that?
Yeah, might be interested in that.
Okay, gotcha. And then I'm gonna go do the same thing I was doing before, but lean more heavily on the living benefits than talking about the death benefit. If I know they don't care much about the death benefit, then I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it. And so for instance, like if I'm sitting with a young person and they're like, I don't care what happens with the home if I die, the order in which I used to talk about the coverage was I would talk about the death benefit and then, hey, if you move, it goes with you. Um, the coverage always it pays out tax free. It's the full 300,000 no matter what, and the monthly premium never goes up. And that would probably take like a minute and a half to describe all that. But what I did is I would talk about the death benefit, and they don't really care about that. And then I would spend like 2 minutes saying everything those other things, and they would connect those to the death benefit. And then when I would talk about the living benefits and the cashback, which is something that young people care about more often, they weren't already listening. So instead I kind of do the opposite, and it's the same thing that we're doing in that situation, Jonah, when they like don't need it, is I'm kind of throwing them off the trail. I'd be like, look, Jonah, I'm sure you don't really care about what happens with the home if you die, so this will pay off the home if you die, but that's not why people get mortgage protection in place. You know the number one reason people lose their homes or go bankrupt? No, I don't. It's actually medical expenses. It's not a death or a loss of job. And now they're listening and I have their attention because I said, what you don't care about, I don't care about. So be careful with that too, because sometimes you'll do a decent job, but because you spent a while talking about the death benefit, they think they're there for the death benefit and they don't care about that. So little things like that do matter as well.
That's huge. That's huge. I like what you said about, you know, because we ran into that situation last night. It was 8:30 last night. We were helping an agent sitting in Claudia's office, and this guy was it made all the sense in the world. And we broke down his whole budget. He had $800 left over at the end of every month, and he just kept hitting us with like, "Oh, I can't afford it. I can't afford it." Da 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 da. His wife would be in a tough spot, and so exactly some of my biggest sales have been have been people that needed it the least. And what I've noticed as well is the policies that cancel and charge back, it's always the $50, $60 pre. It's always the small ones. You sell a policy for 3, 4, $500 a month, that thing sticks. Those are sticky sales because they see the value and they need it. So yeah, if somebody's got money, do not be intimidated by that. All right, Ryan. And then another thing I wanted to ask you, brother, is what are the most common pitfalls that you see new agents fall into their first 6 months in the business?
Yeah, most common pitfalls. I think number one, and I think that this is a big one right now inside of Pinnacle as a whole. Like I do trainings for a lot of different groups. So this is one that I think is sort of a Pinnacle wide, almost epidemic, if I would call it. I would say that they expect too much out of their leads. And by that I mean, obviously when you start out, you're not trying to spend $2,000 a week, reasonably so. Okay. But what we do is we'll spend 300 to 500 a week, and we're going to be upset that we're not at 5K every week. If you're spending 500 and you're going to be at 5K every week, that's 10xing your lead flow every week. And you cannot reliably and consistently expect to 10x your lead flow. Like you have to understand the only thing you can expect out of your lead flow is 4 to 6x. Now, the tricky part is, Jonah, there are weeks where you can spend 300 and you can write 5K, you can write 8K, you can write 10K. And so it's kind of false and fickle because you can spend a little bit of money and write a ton of business, but you could just as well, like let's say this is actually a scenario that happens a lot. Let's say I'm spending $300 a week. I'm buying like 4-year-old leads and I'm getting like 300 or 400 of them a week, right? I could have one week where I spend $400 and I write 5K. That's more than 10xing my lead flow. And then the next week, maybe I write 1,000. And the next 2 weeks, I blank, right? So if you look back at what I spent around $1,200. What's 1,200 times 4? 1,200 times 4 is a little under 5K. And I wrote 7K, right? And I had 3 terrible weeks in a row, but one good week. And so what happens when you have a lead flow like that, the roller coaster is way up and down. It can be insane. And I have a lot of agents right now that are doing something similar when I'm trying to help them understand, well, look, you had one giant week and then a couple bad weeks, but if you look at the last 3 or 4 weeks, your ROI is what it should be. You're just expecting too much out of your leads. So don't expect too much out of your leads. Again, you can only reliably and consistently count on a 4 to 6x return on your investment. So if you're looking at it, the first thing you should look at if you're upset with your AP results or whatever you're writing is, okay, does my lead spend match my issue paid numbers? Because if it does, stop thinking about your sales process. Because what happens, Jonah, is week one, we spent 400, wrote 5K. We're great salespeople. Week two, we spent 400, wrote 1,000. We're like, yeah, I don't know if I was that good. By week three, when we don't sell anything, we think we're terrible and we think our process needs to change. So we get a new script. We start dealing with objections differently. We change our tonality. We change everything when that wasn't the problem, right? When I said objections aren't real, this is another thing that I'm talking about. Like, you think your objection in your mind is, oh, I need to change all these things. No, that's not the problem. The problem is the lead spend matches. You changing something won't affect the results. I literally was on a call with an agent Monday afternoon, same exact thing. I kind of walked into the same thing. I said, hey, brother, don't change your sales process. Have confidence. You're a great salesperson. Your average ROI is like 8x over the last 4 weeks. Last week was a bad week because you've been having an insane lead flow. It's just kind of evening out. Keep your head down. Don't change a thing. Stay confident. And he closed like 3K Monday night. He closed 1,000 yesterday and already 2,000 a day. Did nothing different. Not even any more lead spend, just confidence in his process. So what I would say is, like, one of the biggest pitfalls is we're not spending enough on leads to have a consistent consistent numbers, and then we think we're the problem when we're not. It's just because the lead flow isn't there enough for us to be consistent. Does that kind of make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And as a new agent, it's it's a little like I've seen agents where they think, oh, well, I'm going to start spending more on leads when I start seeing success. And that's an oxymoron. You're only going to see success when you start spending more on leads.
No.
And for me, and especially if you're new, I know it's scary, but dude, when I was starting, the only reason I didn't fail out of this business is because I overspent on leads. And the more leads you have, the more forgiving this business will be. If you're operating your business from a tight fisted and a scarcity mindset, this is gonna be a rough roller coaster, brother. And you better have your skill set and your sales game up here. Because because think about it, when you always have fresh people to talk to and you're always having fresh conversations and you're able to get reps and presentations on presentations on presentations, no matter how bad you are, you're getting so many reps and you're having so many conversations, so many presentations, that you're just naturally going to get better by the law of numbers and just actually doing it. Because I think another thing agents fail on is they focus too much on their dials. Oh, I made 300 dials today. It's like, all right, dude, well, you had one presentation and you booked. We don't get paid to book appointments. We don't get paid to dial. We get paid to present. So you need to focus on how can I get in as many presentations as possible, because that's going to increase your skill set. And that's the only action that's actually going to produce income and put money in your bank account. And here's the truth is, like, me and Ryan now, we've both been doing this for a minute. So we could probably get away with spending a couple $100 a week on leads and still produce. But myself, as my first year, heck no, dude. I didn't have the skill set. I'm sure Ryan would agree with me. I don't think Ryan had the skill set. And Ryan, how much were you spending a week on leads your first year in this?
Probably like 2,000 to 2,100 a week.
How much did you produce your first year?
My first year I did 300.
300. What about the second year?
It was 550.
550. What was the weekly we'd spend that year?
Between 1,800 and 2,500. It was varied a little bit. Probably average like 22.
Yeah. So very similar lead spend. Only difference, Ryan just got better at closing. Ryan's skill set went up because he was able to get reps. So, all right, well, we're going about 50 minutes here. Ryan, close us out. Give us some parting words.
All right. First parting word is, Natalie, cut out the hope. Assume the sale in the script. The script will work. Every script works. So don't hope nothing. Make the script work for you. Every script works. Every lead works. Every script sucks. Every lead sucks. It's all about your approach and your mindset to it, right? Pre-close yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, assume the sale on yourself. You'll be more likely to assume it with clients. But yeah, I mean, guys, the only thing that I would say to you guys is is I really, really, really started doing well when I started tracking my numbers like a dog. And I know I've mentioned that, on calls with you guys before, but I'm gonna take a little bit of a different angle on it. One of the reasons I started doing well is because I knew I could see how good I was and I could see how consistent I was. And so it used to be really difficult coming back after a bad week because I was like, oh, dude, I didn't sell a week last week. That sucks. But when you know your numbers and you know you average a 50% closing ratio, dude, if I went 0 for 10 last week, the math says I'm gonna go 10 for 10 this week. So, brother, I'm gonna try to get 10 presentations in as fast as I possibly can. And what it did is it gave me part of what it did is it gave me an insane amount of confidence to where I truly was disconnected from the results of the sale. Jonah, I approached every call like I don't care. If you tell me no, great. Because that means two of the next three people are gonna tell me yes. So if you're gonna tell me no now, tell me no fast. Please. And it gave me so much confidence. And what happened was because I had more confidence, my closing ratio went up more, which in turn gave me more confidence. And the opposite thing can happen where you don't track your numbers. So you don't know what's going to happen. So you have less confidence. So your closing ratios goes down. So which gives you in turn less confidence. So if you guys have been here more than 3 months, when you look at your numbers, trust that that's who you are. Whether that's good or whether that's bad, trust that that's who you are because it is. That's what the math says. The maths. And act upon that. Believe that, trust that, let that be your Bible. If it says your closing ratio is 52% and your goal is 10K and your average AP is 1200, do the math on how many presentations you need to get to 10K and just do that. Forget about the AP. And it'll give you so much confidence heading into your sales calls that you guys will be absolutely unstoppable selling machines when you track your numbers and you just have a belief and a conviction in who you are because of what the numbers say. Make it happen.
Yes. Yes. And if I could add to that, numbers are Claudia will, who knows at this point, Claudia will yell at you if you're not tracking your numbers. She gets on you about that. But on top of that is get so obsessed with the process, get obsessed with the process and detach yourself from the results. You guys can ask Claudia. I had many days, many days for years. I would leave my house at 7:30 a.m., get home at 10:30 at night, and I'd get home and you ask Claudia, like she wouldn't be able to tell. Like I had days where I'd go out there, I'd have 13 appointments on the books, I'd come home at 0, worked all day, worked my butt off, didn't help a single family. I'd also have $15,000 days.
Yeah.
And I was cool as a cucumber and I was always right here. So whether my day was freaking amazing or whether my day was terrible, she didn't know because I was always the same because I knew that to each and every day, every day you wake up at 0, which which when you think about it, it's really a good thing. And it's refreshing and it really allows you to reflect and think that, dude, here's the thing, because these clients don't know. They don't know if you closed every other family you talked to for the past month or
Yeah.
you went 0 for 15. Every family you talk to and every day is a new opportunity. So it doesn't matter if yesterday was complete dog shit or you wrote 10K. Every day you start the clock at 0. You clock in and you go to work and just get obsessed with the process. Because we've all heard the saying, if you're riding the highs and you're riding the lows, this business is a rough roller coaster ride, brother. Gets rough. So Ryan, brother, this was fire as always. Thank you for hopping on the call and pouring into the team.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So I know you did mention earlier that your responses to the I'm not interested or I don't need this. Could you go over that specifically for the I'm not interested and I don't need it after they say it for the first, second, and third time?
Okay. So first time I'm AIMing it. The second time they say the same objection, I just call it like a witch pitch. Do you not want it because of this or that? And then the third time I give them a no based, kind of like a no based ultimatum. So to go through what I mean by that. So the first time I'm just ignoring it. Perfect. I'm not interested either. I still need to go over everything with you. They say I'm not interested again. No worries. Are you not interested because someone said you're way too expensive or you couldn't qualify? That's what we call like the witch pitch. And then whatever they say, oh, no worries. I don't know why they showed you something 400 a month. Claudia's an idiot. Most of our programs are well under 100 a month. All right. And then keep going. And then if they say they're not interested again, I give them a no based ultimatum. So what I mean by that is a lot of people are like, oh, well, would you be interested in just a short conversation to see if it makes sense for you? But people like saying no because it makes you feel powerful. So make that work for you. So instead of saying, would you be interested in X, say, would you be opposed to X? So what I would do is I would say, oh, no worries, Jonah. Trust me, I don't want to be on the phone with you any longer than you do. I promise. I got to do this all day. But I know that we could really help you out. So would you be opposed to a brief conversation to seeing how this could really impact you and your family? And that's a reasonable request. Most of the time, they'll be like, no, not at all, because they're saying no to you, right? Perfect.
Go
Make
for
that
now.
for you. So that's what I'm doing. AIM, which pitch, no based ultimatum. Does that answer your question?
That does. Thank you very much. I mean, yeah, settles it pretty well.
Ryan, thank you very much. You're the GOAT. God bless. Let's make it a great week.
All right. Kill y'all.